Welcome back to the It's Too Easy podcast. We are back for week 5 of the college football season after coming off a hot start of 13-3 last week. Got to enjoy USC down at the Coliseum, and then obviously the Chargers and Bronco game on Sunday was fun. So back in town, ready for another good week of football. So Jake, what are we starting with tonight?
Yep. Obviously 13-3 got hot last week, which is nice for college football considering the first 3 weeks we didn't start so hot. Just kind of we're get to know the teams a little bit, and I feel like this week we're gonna try and keep that momentum rolling. Really liked a lot of these games on the slate. Getting the chance to really see how these teams look, I think, is definitely going to help us here for the future. So the first game is Florida State at Virginia. Florida State is only 6.5-point favorites, and I feel like they've kind of flown under the radar a little bit. I really like how they've looked, and I'm just going to ride with them 6.5. I feel like they should be able to cover a touchdown, no problem. I'm seeing probably like a 10 to 13 point game in that one, but yeah, I'm just going to stick with Florida State minus 6.5.
That game is very interesting to me just because Virginia's at home and college teams are usually pretty solid at home. But I do think Florida State, I saw the line and thought the same thing. I was like, why is it only 6.5? Which scares me a little bit, but because of that, I'm going to buy it down to 4 and just take Florida State to win by 4. I know Chandler Morris is the quarterback over at Virginia. He's going on his 6th year of college football, played with a couple decent programs. So I'm just going to take him to be able to put up some points as a vet, but Florida State at least to cover 4.
Yeah, right on. And then we got TCU and Arizona State. That's going to be a really fun one this week. I feel like TCU is another one of those teams that's just kind of slowly flying under the radar for the college football season. Not getting quite as much respect as they, I think, demand. It is going to be a really tough game on the road at Arizona State. I'm not sure how warm it's going to be in Arizona. They usually play really well at home as well. But I like the way TCU's really looked on offense, especially. Their defense obviously steps up in big moments, and they played really well in the first few weeks. So I'm going to take TCU plus 3. Kind of tempted to take them on the money line, to be honest, just because Hoover's got them playing really well, and they always have good coaching and are pretty fundamental with the way they play. But I'll just stick with TCU plus 3.
Yeah, this is interesting because it's at Arizona State, another one of those things where it's a newfound, I think, rivalry that's coming with the division like that. I definitely was leaning on TCU to win as well, so the fact that we're getting 3, and I think it was 3.5, I'll buy it back to 3.5. I think that Sonny Dykes has been a great coach for them. Josh Hoover's been there, and he looked phenomenal last week. So I think they're finally getting their rhythm again. They have looked good this season, and from what we've seen from Arizona State, outside of Jordan Tyson, they don't have much going for them. Malik Brown here and there. Levitt hasn't been too good, so I like TCU to cover 3.
Yep. And then moving on, we got SC going into Illinois this week. They're 6.5 or 5.5 point favorites. I'm going to buy it down to 2.5. Illinois got absolutely stomped last week against Indiana. Indiana is another one of those teams where it's just like nobody's giving them enough respect. But I tell you what, Illinois looked really bad. Games started pretty back and forth to start. I think it was like 7-7 right off the rip. And then Indiana put up like 56 straight, just absolutely crushed them. I think USC's offense is going to have no problem carving through Illinois. SC, I feel like, is one of the most actually, I think they have the best offense in the nation right now via stats, putting up points, all that, most efficient. So I see them once again having another efficient week on offense. Their defense is much improved this year. So I'm sure they likely will cover the 6.5, but I'm going to buy it down to 2.5 just in case Altmaier somehow makes it a good game. I doubt that'll happen, but 2.5 will definitely make me feel safe.
I mean, I just watched Michigan State end up putting 31 on. It was really only 7 till, you could tell the refs made some calls and the game started getting close, and then USC pulled away again at the end. But Illinois being at home, getting 7 seems like a lot. They were just ranked 9th in the nation a week ago. But again, I think USC is underrated. They're still only ranked at 21, which I think is kind of disrespectful, being 4-0, having dropped 45 every single week of the year, 70 piece, I think, in week 1. They have played really well. I expect them to get it done. I'm leaning on probably buying Illinois to plus 10 at home from 7.5 rather than buying USC down just because it is on the road.
Yeah, right on. Then we got Notre Dame and Arkansas. Another pretty intriguing game. Two teams that obviously, well, Notre Dame didn't really get off to too hot of a start against Miami there. But Arkansas's looked really good. Taylor Green, when he gets it going, they look really good. But in the second half of the game last week, kind of choked, didn't really put up any points. Ended up losing to Memphis, which was a really tough game to watch because I was on the side of Arkansas. I'm going to stick with them, though. They're 4.5 point dogs here at home against Notre Dame. I feel like this one's going to come down to experience level, and I think that Arkansas is actually going to have more experience as a team in this game. If the crowd gets rowdy and behind them, then I feel like they'll have a decent shot here to beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame isn't quite as good as they've been the last couple seasons. They still have their star running back, but he hasn't been all that impressive the first few games. So I think that gives me more reason just to stick with Arkansas plus 4.5.
Yeah, the thing that I saw was that the over/under's at 65, and that just seems insane for a Notre Dame team that usually has a phenomenal defense.
Yeah,
But they did give up, I think, 40 in back-to-back weeks, 27 to Miami week one. So I'm actually gonna not take that, even though I would initially be all over the under. Um, I think that Notre Dame's gonna end up getting it done. I think Freeman's got him playing ball a little bit last week. Maybe get some rhythm going, a little bit of confidence in what they're doing. And at a 3 point line, I think it's just worth taking the money line at around minus 180.
yeah, right on. And then we got Duke Syracuse. Syracuse had a really nice win last week against Clemson. Clemson, I think, 1-3 now. And Dabo came out and was like, well, if we just suck one season, we'll be better the next season. So I just don't like Dabo's antics. But Syracuse looked really good in their win there. Tough to tell how good because the first couple games they didn't look all that great, but then they beat Clemson, who is supposed to be really good, and yet here we are, they're pretty bad. Duke obviously is a pretty back and forth team. They've been in some close ones in some games that they probably in a game that they should have won, or at least been closer to winning, that they didn't get done. Syracuse is at home here, getting 7.5, and I feel like that's just a really, really high line, especially for a Duke team that we don't really know too much about still yet, just because they're so inconsistent. So I'm gonna stick with Syracuse plus 7.5, see if they can keep that momentum rolling from that big win against Clemson.
Yeah, Syracuse is one of the first teams that I looked at this season. I was like, man, this team is terrible. And then they just rolled Clemson. But Clemson also, I've hated Klubnik for since 3 years ago when he came in. So I wasn't too impressed, but I was still surprised that they won and they won handily. And Duke is typically not very good on the road. They got spanked, kept it close originally against Illinois, but ended up losing, I think, by 20 plus. So going on the road, I don't think that they're going to blow out a Syracuse team. So I'll take the 7.5 as well.
Right on. Then we got Cincinnati and Kansas. Kansas, another one of those teams that's kind of flying under the radar. Man, my eyes itching. They're 4.5 point favorites at home, or maybe a little bit more. I'm buying it down to 4.5 or taking it at 4.5. I feel like Cincinnati's just kind of not as good this year as we're used to seeing them. They're usually like top of the midfield, somewhere around like the 30 to 40 ranked in the nation. But I feel like Kansas this year is a team that's going to end up in the top 25 by the end of the year just because of the division they play in. And their quarterback's really good. So I really like Kansas to cover 4.5 in this one at home.
Yeah, this is interesting. Sorsby's been around Cincy for a little bit. Jalen Daniels has been around Kansas for a bit. Kansas is at home, so they should be getting 3, and they are getting 4. So I do like it. I'm going to take it down to 2.5 and take Kansas to win, cover 2 at home.
Yeah, fair enough. Then we got Ohio State and Washington. First Big Ten game that's really intriguing to me, other than SC Illinois. Ohio State's 8.5 point favorites in this one. Washington has actually looked really good so far this season. I feel like this
Delta
is
ass.
yeah. I feel like this is
Everybody,
UC
yeah.
Davis. Yeah, UC Davis got it bad. But I feel like Ohio State's going to be able to win this one and cover touchdowns. So I'm going to take them down to minus 6.5 and take Ohio State. I feel like this is going to be a really defensive heavy game. For some reason, I don't see a lot of points being scored in this game unless what's the dude's name? Ohio State quarterback.
Julian
Sayin. Yeah, Julian Sayin. If he gets it going early, then it could be a higher scoring game, but I see it being lower scoring. And I think in the end, Ohio State will be able to cover 6.5.
Yeah, I am there with you. It kind of actually worries me because Washington just beat Washington State by 35 at Washington State, which is a rivalry.
Yeah.
So they have looked very good. I think it's Desmond Williams is the quarterback at Washington, I believe. He's looked phenomenal, being able to run it, sling it. He can kind of do everything. They got all kinds of weapons over there. But just because of the level of competition and defending champs that have looked solid against Texas, and even since then, I'm going to take Ohio State to win it. Um, I'm not really sure how I'm feeling about the line. I think they'll end up getting it done. I don't know if it'll end up being by 6, but I'm kind of leaning on that six line that you're taking as well.
Yeah, right on. And then a game that I'm not going to touch, but I know you want to touch, Oregon and Penn State, probably the biggest game of the week. I know college football Saturday is going to be over there. Yeah, really hoping that Oregon can pull it out again. Personally, I feel like Penn State's going to be playing with a chip on their shoulder just because of the Big Ten championship game last year. So it's really going to depend on if Oregon can get things going early, if their defense can really step up. So personally, I'm going to no play it. I'm leaning on Penn State -2.5 just because they have so much experience. Not that Oregon doesn't, but I just feel like we're a little bit of a younger team. We don't really have a running back one. We've been playing like 4 or 5 different running backs through the first 4 games of the season. So if they're splitting touches, it's tough to tell who's going to be able to get going. And that could take a while. And if it does, I mean, we could go down early. So I would definitely take Penn State money line in the first half. And then we'll see what happens in the second half. But yeah, I'm going to no play this game in general.
I love this game. Is it Troy Franklin?
He's on the Broncos.
No, the coach, Franklin.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah,
Penn State's coach,
yeah,
Franklin,
yeah.
whatever his name is. He's a bum. He's 4-20 against top 10 teams in his career at Penn State, with a phenomenal defense, which they have yet again. They still have Drew Aller, and I believe both Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. They're 2-star running backs. But Oregon has looked surprisingly like very good with Dante Moore when I really wasn't high on Dante Moore. Now it is going into Penn State to play it, so that's a long flight across the country for a bunch of young guys. So I don't love it, but I do think Oregon's going to cover 4 points. I would probably wait to. I think both teams will have a lead at some point in this game, so I would wait for Penn State to get a lead, see if you can't get 7 to 10 points, and then take it at that. But I'm hoping Oregon covers and probably gets the win. They did win by 8 in that Big Ten championship in a shootout. I am interested to see what happens this time.
Yeah, kind of another game that I feel like is going to end up being low scoring just because these two defenses have really stepped up and looked really good this year. So hopefully we'll see more of the same. And yeah, go Ducks, but I just can't find myself to take a pick in this one. Yeah, then we move on to LSU and Ole Miss. Ole Miss is 3.5-point favorites at home against LSU. This is ranked 4 against ranked 13. Ole Miss has kind of slowly been climbing the ladder so far at the beginning of this season. They're definitely getting the love. Getting pushed up all the way to 13. 3.5-point favorites at home just kind of surprised me just because LSU's defense has, I think, probably been in the top 3, top 2 defenses in all of college football. And I expect kind of more of the same in this game, even though they're on the road. It is going to be a loud house there, but LSU has been playing really good to start the year. I think they all the way up to 4. So it's crazy to just think about, from where they started there to where they're at now. Had some tough games already, but they've kind of been able to pull them out. So I'm going to take them plus 3.5 in this game at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is one of those teams that they're usually unbelievable on offense, but they always have a game or two where they just stutter and kind of look really bad. And I think this could end up being one of them just because this LSU defense is for real. So I'm going to stick with them plus 3.5 in this one.
I'm on the same side as you there. LSU plus 3.5. I like it. They should at least be able to cover 3. I think they'll probably end up getting the win. Lane Kiffin is another one of those coaches that often loses big games. So is Kelly on the other side, but Kelly even has about a 600 win percentage against Kiffin in their career. I think that LSU's defense, like you said, has been phenomenal. And I really think that Ole Miss is going to get exposed here in the quarterback room. They had Simmons starting the first 2 weeks, and there was a reason for it. And then he got benched within 2 weeks. They put in Childress, who's looked phenomenal. So obviously, if they weren't that far off during preseason that Simmons got the start, and now Childress has looked great for 2 games, it could just be the opponents that they're playing. So now going against a good defense, I could see him being slowed down a little bit. But he has been a dual threat, which has been extremely helpful for Ole Miss to continue to look good. I think LSU gets a win here, so and a big one on the road. But I am going to just take that 3.5 points that they're getting.
Yeah, right on. Then keep moving on to Auburn and Texas A&M. Texas A&M had a really nice comeback win against Notre Dame. Actually, it was just a super back and forth game. But yeah, Auburn's also looked pretty good. They got Arnold from Oklahoma, and he's been hit and miss. When he runs, they look really good on offense, and then when he's been stopped, they've been kind of iffy. But Texas A&M is one of those teams that I think is also just kind of slowly, gradually gaining momentum. And that stadium is probably the hardest stadium to play in college football. So I'm going to stick with Texas A&M on the money line in this one.
I don't really think A&M's top 10 worthy, and they're ranked 9. So I'm kind of leaning on Auburn to cover in a close game. But rather than taking either team to win, just because it is 7 points and I don't want to buy it up or down, I like the under in this game. I think this is two offenses that have looked good, but they haven't really played good defenses, and I don't think that the quarterbacks on either side are phenomenal. So I'm gonna go under 53.5 on this one.
Yeah, right on like that. Moving on, got Indiana and Iowa. Really fun game. Two defenses that are actually probably on the upper side of the echelon in college football this year. Indiana just skunked Illinois. Obviously, they had a touchdown, but it was just an absolute dogfight, and Indiana just won every part of the game. Offense, defense, special teams, everything that went their way. I think they're going to keep it rolling. Mendoza is now a Heisman favorite for this year, which is pretty crazy because he's probably, I mean, he's not all that great. He's probably a top 10 college quarterback, but a lot of these guys are getting injured or not playing very well, so it's just kind of snuck him right into the conversation. In order for them to keep it going, they have a lot of tough games on their schedule as well. Iowa is definitely not one of the tougher ones, so I see them being able to take the win here in Iowa.
Yeah, I think when I looked up this series, Iowa's won 8 of the last 10, including 7 straight at home. And so the fact that they're getting 7.5, I'm going to take the 7.5. I do love Indiana with what they put out last week, especially watching Illinois get obliterated was like music to my ears. I hate them so much. Just Luke Altmaier's terrible. I do love Mendoza. I mean, I think we even talked about it earlier in the year. Like, could be a super long shot for Heisman just because he was decent at Cal. Now he's got better weapons and better coaching. I think that'll fade off as the season goes on, but I do think Indiana is solid. So I'm hoping Indiana gets the win, but I still think that Iowa is going to at least cover being at home, and that pick's for Jared.
Yeah, right on. That could be another game that could end up going under, but I always stray away from the unders in Iowa games because they're typically like 42 points. So I'll stay away from it, but look for a low-scoring game and Indiana to come out with the win on that one. Then we got Arizona and Iowa State, the other Iowa team that actually has been solid so far. I'm super back and forth in this one just because we've kind of been all over Arizona to start the year. They got their quarterback back, and he looks great. They've been able to run the ball really efficiently. And if they're able to do more of the same, I could see them covering 7.5 here against Iowa State. I could see Iowa State having a late drive, either win by a touchdown or a field goal. But even if that happens, I feel like the plus 7.5 will be safe. I think there is going to be a chance that Arizona wins this game. Their offense is just rolling. They definitely could come away with the dub here. So I'm going to stick with Arizona plus 7.5 here on the road against Iowa State.
Yeah, I like that too. We kind of been all over Arizona and Iowa State, so this is a little bit of a tricky one because Iowa State's at home, and I like college home teams. Rocco Beck's been solid, but they haven't really blown me away. Arizona's like surprisingly done better than I expected. So getting 7.5, I know it's on the road, but I think that they should be able to cover, even if there's a little bit of turnovers. I could see that going both ways. Fafita could throw one being on the road. I think Beck could easily throw a pick too. So I'm going to buy it up to 10 and just take Arizona at 10. I could see them winning, but I think it's a little more difficult being on the road. So I like buying it up to 10 just for the better value play.
Yeah, I like that a lot too. And then we got Bama, Georgia. That's going to be a fun one this week.
A lot of good games this week.
Yeah, there are a lot of really, really good games this week. Bama obviously lost that first game of the season, have not looked the same really this year, and without Saban, they just haven't been the same team. Georgia's at home in this game. They're only getting 2.5 points for being the home team. I think Georgia overall has been the better team so far this season. So I feel like this line is pretty skewed. They probably should be favored a bit more. So yeah, I love Georgia minus 2.5 here at home. If they can just double up, keep a safety over the top of Ryan Williams, I feel like they should have no problem covering the 2.5.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Georgia money line at home, just off the sole fact that they've only won one of the last 10 matchups with Alabama.
True.
Uh, five being at home, five not being at home. Alabama just has their number. Even last year, it's Kalen's first season at Alabama, and they got it done.
Yeah.
So I think the QB situation's a little bit different now because I think Ty Simpson's terrible. But on the other side, I haven't been blown away by Gunnar Stockton either. He was able to get it done against Tennessee on the road, which I loved watching. That was a great game by
That was
him.
probably game of the
Um,
year.
that was a phenomenal game to watch. Sat and watched that whole thing. So with that, I am going to take Georgia being at home to get it done. I would expect they actually win by double digits with how things have looked, but based off the sole fact that they're 1-9 in the last 10, I'm just going to take them to win it money line at home.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it is noteworthy though that Gunner has definitely gotten better as the season's gone on. So hopefully he'll have it ready to go for this game against Bama. Then we got Kentucky, South Carolina, kind of sticking in the SEC. Kentucky's actually looked pretty good, but I'm just not a. I don't trust Stoops over there. I feel like he's probably pretty close to on his way out if they don't have another decent season soon. South Carolina did end up having Sellers play last week, and he looked pretty good. They're at home in this one. I feel like Sellers with just his experience, and I think they're expecting him to be the first QB taken in the draft next year. I can see why. Dude's super smart, has a high football IQ, and I think that experience will will them to a win here against Kentucky. As long as they can stop the run, they'll be okay. South Carolina's front four is usually a problem, so hopefully that'll will them to a win.
Yeah, South Carolina's defense has been pretty good all year, except for Vandy, where Pavia was able to slice and dice, being a dual threat. Don't see that being an issue with Kentucky. This is a game I kind of see around that 24-20, 27-21, somewhere in that mark. And so with that, I think I'm going to take it under 48.5. I don't love it because I do love Sellers. I think that they can score the ball really well. I think South Carolina's going to come away with a win. Just not sure how I feel about the 6.5 point line. I feel like it could fall on either side of that.
Yeah. And then last game on the slate, BYU and Colorado. They're still sleeping on BYU. They're
Them Cougs.
only six and a half
Yeah.
point favorites here against Colorado on the road. Colorado is terrible. Even Dion's been making a lot of mistakes in these games, coaching mistakes with timeouts, not managing the game correctly. And I don't know which quarterback they're on now, but no matter who they throw in there, they haven't looked all that great. And yeah, I love Warren Sapp being over there on the defensive side of the ball for Colorado, but I just don't think they have the recruiting ability yet to be able to get a good team in there, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And on the other side, you got BYU is probably one of the most fun teams to watch this year in college football. They play like a family. They win, lose, they haven't lost yet, but they've been winning and they've been crushing. I love the way that the team plays together, and even without Retzlaff, they've looked awesome. 6.5, I just feel like is not enough for this team going into Colorado when Colorado has not looked great. So I see this being maybe a 17 to 20 point win. Could be as low as 10. But yeah, I'm definitely feeling comfortable with BYU minus 6.5.
Um, yeah, I mean, Kalani Sitake always has BYU looking good. They've had some weapons over the years that they recruit well, and they run the football well. They throw the ball when they need to. And I think that that's super helpful for a young quarterback like Bear Bachmeier. LJ Martin has been a stud. Chase Roberts has been stepping up as a vet. And then Puka's little brother's been out there balling a little bit. So they've been fun to watch. Their defense is always solid. And like you said, we're kind of questioning what's going to happen, if it's going to be Ryan Staub or go back to Caden Salter for this next game. I think with it being in Colorado, I could see it being a little bit closer. I don't love the game, so I would lean on just taking BYU money line on the road because they're very good at home and they're very hit and miss on the road. So it scares me a little bit. But I think the play that I like is two teams I think will get the job done both on the road, but not sure on the lines. I'm going to take Ohio State and BYU, both on the money line at minus 110.
Yeah, right on. So yeah, that's gonna do it for college football this week. Been getting hot last week, so hopefully we can keep that rolling this week. And yeah, hopefully everybody's team wins. Go Ducks, and we will see you back next week for college football week 6. Peace.